This time, we will look at Section 6. Watchdog Timer in Chapter 6 Timer Counter. Chapter 6 Timer Counter consists of the following contents. This time, we will take a final look at the watchdog timer. Afterwards, we will conduct various practical exercises based on the theoretical explanation. Let's look at the watchdog timer in Chapter 6. First is the overview part. The function of the watchdog timer is to have the function of notifying the MCU of this fact and allowing the MCU to be reset if the MCU operates abnormally and abnormal operation is detected. Let's look at the action. The watchdog timer operates by receiving a clock from a separate 1 MHz built-in oscillator. The reset timeout period of the watchdog timer is determined according to the division ratio determined by the watchdog timer prescaler. The watchdog timer can be executed by the WDR command if the reset cycle ends without resetting the watchdog timer. The ATmega128 is reset. If you look at the diagram of the watchdog timer, it is as follows. This time, we will look at the registers related to the watchdog. First, let's look at the watchdog timer control register. As you can see, the bit structure uses 5 bits. First, let's look at bit 4, watchdog change enable bit. This bit can be set when the watchdog enable bit is written to 0. The watchdog enable bit will be bit 3. Once set, it can be automatically cleared by hardware after 4 clock cycles. When changing the watchdog prescaler in safety levels 1 and 2, it must also be set to 1. So, when changing the watchdog prescaler in safety levels 1 and 2, it must be set. Let's look at the watchdog enable in the 3rd bit. When watchdog enable is set, the watchdog timer function will be activated. When the watchdog enable bit is cleared, the watchdog timer function will not be performed. The watchdog enable bit can only be cleared when the watchdog change enable bit is set. To disable an activated watchdog timer, follow the steps below. I have to follow watchdog change enable and watchdog enable must be recorded simultaneously as 1, and even if it is set to 1. Before the disable operation starts, watchdog enable must be set to 1. If the watchdog enable is recorded as 0 within 4 clock cycles, the watchdog timer will be disabled. We need to disable the watchdog timer activated by these two procedures. Bit 0 to bit 2 become Watchdog prescaler 0, 1, and 2. These bits will be the bits that determine the prescaler for the operation of the Watchdog timer. When the Watchdog timer function is activated, we will look at the prescaler according to these bits in the next slide. Let's continue to look at registers related to the Watchdog. This is the continuation of the Watchdog timer control register. The Watchdog prescaler bit 0, 1, and 2, which determine the period of the Watchdog timer, are set to 3 bits. As you can see, there are 8 cases. And at a typical 5-volt level, the timeout time can be set variously from 14 milliseconds to 1.8 seconds. You need to know the contents of this table. Let's look at the MCU control and status register as the second part of the register related to the Watchdog. Here we just need to know the contents of bit 3 as the Watchdog reset flag bit. Bit cheche functions as a flag bit that notifies the Watchdog that a reset has occurred. You should be aware that bit 3 is the Watchdog reset flag bit. This time we will look at the safety level as the third part of the Watchdog timer. Safety level. Provide 3 different levels of safety to prevent accidental inhibition or alteration of the reset period. This safety level is determined by the fuse bits M103C and WDTON as follows. First, it can be divided into cases, where M103C is set to unprogrammed 1 and cases where M103C is set to program 0, as WDTON is set to 1010 for each M103C. The safety level will be 1202. So, the initial state of the Watchdog. How to disable the Watchdog and how to change the timeout. Follow the following procedures. First, let's look at safety level 0. Safety level 0 requires 1 to be 1. M sans placer should be 0. So you don't need to know exactly what safety level 0 is, because we are not using 103 compatibility mode. If you look first, M103C is set to 0. Setting WTDON to 1 corresponds to safety level 0. Initially, the Watchdog timer is disabled. However, there are no restrictions on activation. By recording this in the Watchdog enable bit. Additionally, there are no restrictions on changing the timeout period. For the procedure to deactivate an activated timer, please refer to the Watchdog enable operation procedure on page 6 to 52 and follow the procedure. I'll have to follow the procedure Next, we will explain the safety level of the Watchdog timer, continuing with Safety Level 1. Safety Level 1 means the Watchdog timer is initially disabled, but can be activated by setting the Watchdog enable bit in the Watchdog control register. To disable an activated Watchdog timer or change the Watchdog reset timeout period, follow the steps below. First, one must be written to the Watchdog change enable bit and the Watchdog enable bit as simultaneous operations. A logic 1 must be written as 1 regardless of what the previous value of the Watchdog enable bit was. Next, in the same operation, you must set the value in the Watchdog enable within for cycles and write the desired value to bits 2, 1, and 0 of the Watchdog prescaler, and the Watchdog change enable bit will be cleared. Safety level 1 must be achieved through procedures 1 and 2. Let me explain about safety level 2. At safety level 2, the Watchdog timer is always enabled, and the Watchdog enable bit is always read as 1. A timeout sequence will be required to change the Watchdog timeout period. To change the Watchdog reset timeout period, you must follow the following procedure. 1 must be written to the Watchdog change enable and Watchdog enable bits in simultaneous operation. In this operation, even if 1 is written in the Watchdog enable bit, 1 must be written to the Watchdog enable bit in order for the Watchdog enable time sequence to start. Next, within 4 clock cycles, the values must be set to bits 2, 1, and 0 of the Watchdog prescaler using the same operation. You must set it according to the desired period, and the Watchdog change enable bit will be cleared. At this time, it does not matter what value is set for the Watchdog enable. So, safety level 2 must be operated by these procedures 1 and 2. This concludes the explanation of the Watchdog timer in the timer counter.